It's 6 p.m. Eastern. It's time for the Daily Wrap. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host and the whistleblower who bought down Enron. Who knew? Forbes columnist Rick Unger is here and proud.
Very busy
Also,
guy.
She is one of Philadelphia's top attorneys and former star of MTV's Real World, the Las Vegas season that was full of all sorts of controversy. Heather Hansen. And finally, she's one of Long Island's finest and co-host of Close Encounter, Lisa Janovich, joins us. Welcome all. It's time for the Daily Download. And today, a group claiming to be Yemeni branch of ISIS carried out a series of suicide bombings in the capital city of Sana'a. All told, 137 people are dead, 345 others injured. The attack occurred at two mosques during midday prayers. Josh Earnest at the White House press briefing today said there's no indication ISIS had anything to do with it.
I can tell you that we cannot at this point confirm the veracity of the claim of these extremists that they are affiliated with the Islamic State. We have seen these kinds of claims in the past from other extremist groups. It does appear that these kinds of claims are often made for a perception that they have that it benefits their propaganda efforts.
The White House press secretary continues.
There is not at this point clear evidence of a operational link between these extremists in Yemen and ISIL fighters in Iraq and Syria. But what is clear is that the United States and our coalition partners are very aware of just how dangerous the ideology and tactics of ISIL are.
Okay, so if this was in fact ISIS, this would be the first attack in Yemen. President Obama last fall used Yemen as an example of success in his strategy to fight the war on terror.
This strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one that we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years, and it is consistent with the approach I outlined earlier this year, to use force against anyone who threatens America's core interests, but to mobilize partners wherever possible to address broader challenges to international order.
Yes, but it has been a hotbed for al-Qaeda and teeters on the edge of stability as Shia and Sunnis fight for control. Let's bring in former SEAL and special agent to the FBI and now president of the security firm Continued Services, Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, earlier this week, a museum in Tunisia was attacked, and ISIS claimed responsibility for murdering 24 people. Now they claim responsibility for the attack in Yemen as well. First question to you, do you think it was ISIS or al-Qaeda, or does it really matter on a global scale?
Well, I mean, it could have been ISIS or al-Qaeda. I mean, the fact is that they're Sunni, and the Shias are who now rule in Yemen, which are backed by Iran. So it very well could have been them. I think regardless of the fact whether it is or not, and even the fact that it's Sunni or Shia, we're still looking at another action from fundamental Islamic Mohammedism. I mean, that's a fact. It doesn't even matter if they're attacking each other. Ultimately, it's the same tactics, the same roots that are spreading all over the world. And politicians consistently get spun up and try to figure out who it was, when the reality is it's just another sign of the failed war on terror overall and globally.
You know, Jonathan, it's Heather Hansen here. You talked about whether they're attacking each other. Today, al-Qaeda came out and actually condemned the attack because it happened in a mosque and said that they abhor this and they think that it's unlawful, quote unquote. If they were to suddenly get in competition with each other, what impact would that have on our fight with them?
Well, you're talking about al-Qaeda and ISIS?
Yes, yeah.
Well, they were at one point not really friendly. Now in certain places they've kind of swore allegiance or have worked, you know, so I wouldn't say together necessarily, but you have to look at who the fighters are. The power struggle would be in the hierarchy, but the reality is, you know, the people that are actually doing the ground fighting, they may go from, you know, one to the other depending on who's around their area and their location. Again, this is the fight is really a bigger picture, and we need to look at overall the movement of how Islamic fundamentalism is spreading around the world. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Jonathan, it's Rick. I gotta ask you this. It seems to me, and I guess we don't really know. I understand Heather tells us that Al Qaeda abhorred it, although they have bombed mosques before, but not very often. It seems to me that this could be more about the political things going on in Yemen. Look, the people who were hit today were the Houthis, who were the Shia sect that overthrew the Sunni government in Yemen a few months ago, sent the president of the country off into exile. And they are the sworn enemy of Al Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula. Don't you have to wonder if this might not have been a political situation where they're trying to get that Sunni leader back in power? He is still claiming to be president of the country.
I mean, that's a very good possibility. I mean, you got to look at the fact that this conflict is going on in Yemen. It also shows you the importance of Yemen and why they would be battling for a country that if you visited it, you would think, why is anybody fighting over this territory? I mean, the reality is what goes on in Yemen and its location is very crucial to their fight. And Yemen is kind of like a lawless location for them to stage attacks that go on around the world and also train people.
Jonathan, I wonder if it's Joe again. ISIS isn't stepping too far here. I mean, every terrorist campaign and every terror attack like this is obviously way too much when just innocent people, 137 in this case, are killed. But by going into a mosque and actually attacking that during midday prayers, and then seeing what happened in Egypt with 21 Christians being beheaded, and seeing what happened to that Jordanian pilot burned alive, are they now risking being counterattacked by other Arab countries, other folks that aren't evil Westerners and Americans? In other words, I don't know if they're doing themselves too many favors here by going after a mosque and angering all the folks in the Muslim world by doing so.
Well, you got to look at two things. You got to look at where the split comes from. The Sunni and Shia split's over, almost 1,400 years old. That's not going to go away anytime soon, regardless. But you have to realize when you say Arab nations, the fact is, ISIS is not really a nation. It's a group of people, and they're doing unconventional war. So it really doesn't matter what other people think about it. The likelihood of them doing an effective strike against ISIS is about as successful as us carrying out a bombing attack to stop terrorism.
And we'll have to end it there. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight. And coming up next, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz made a big mistake with his Race Together campaign. Did he? Well, we'll discuss that. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Lisa Jandovitz. So yesterday, during my potluck, I mentioned Starbucks' Race Together campaign, an incentive courtesy of CEO Howard Schultz, not to be confused with Charles M. Schultz, who asked company baristas to write Race Together on customers' cups to stimulate a week of national dialogue about race. In addition to Race Together being written on the coffee cups, Starbucks also giving out this Race Together newspaper. Yes, we have our own copy right here. Newspapers still do exist, young people. This is all part of a joint effort with USA Today that explains why Schultz wanted to do the campaign.
The country is being torn apart by racial injustice and a level of racism that we haven't seen publicly for a very long time. I think Starbucks has had a long history of recognizing that we have a national footprint, and we want to answer the question in the affirmative: can we use our scale for good? All we're trying to do is potentially do something catalytic to start a conversation.
Jim Cramer also followed up by saying, buy Starbucks stock or something to that effect. But the backlash against Starbucks and Schultz has been huge. Twitter exploding with comments, including this one from Jameel Smith, who writes for The New Republic. The only folks happy about Starbucks baristas discussing race with customers are the suits who run it. Feel-good liberalism at its worst. Our friend Ron Christie wrote in the Daily Beast, but just as I don't want the government to facilitate discussions whether I like it or not, the same applies to this idea that Starbucks employees should be forcing their customers to do the same when all they wanted, just like me and my potluck yesterday was a cup of coffee and a break from the routine of their day. Elsewhere on social media, people have called for a boycott of Starbucks. Gang, as we briefly talked about it yesterday, I thought this was a huge mistake, even though the intentions were well placed by the CEO.
People, you know, this has become so endemic in this country. People get a little too carried away with this. It was well intended. I happen to agree it wasn't the best plan in the world. As I said yesterday, you know, if you're having a conversation with your barista about race or anything else, and I'm waiting for my coffee, we got a big problem. So I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But for people overreacting, look, the man is a good corporate citizen. He has best intentions, so, you know, just nicely say, this isn't a great idea.
Don't you think, even though it was a horrible idea and the execution worse, right, to put these poor baristas who are making $10 an hour, you know what, now we want you to have a dialogue about race, like their job isn't horrible enough already that they have to go into that whole awkward conversation.
They like their jobs.
I know, well, maybe.
It's not horrible.
Well, it's not the greatest either. I mean, you got to get up early for starters. People like their coffee early. That's no good.
Well, we do that.
Anyway, there was a question here somewhere. I mean, boycott? What? Boycott because they tried to do something good for the country?
Well, and I think it's easier for corporations to stay silent than to speak out in some way. But I do think, and you know, we've talked about this when the George Zimmerman trial was coming, because I'm a lawyer. Oftentimes, I'm asked to talk about these things: the George Zimmerman trial, and then the whole thing in Ferguson, and then Eric Garner. And we talk about these things only in response to some sort of tragedy. And I do think it's a great idea to talk about it when there isn't a tragedy. But a better focus might have been like a town hall at Starbucks on a Monday night to talk about these things, and then that way people who are there want to be there, because you can't force the conversation. You have to have people who want to engage, who might be curious, who might be afraid otherwise. So I think that there's ways to do this, and it is a good idea. This was not the way to do it. I do think a boycott's a little much.
You can't do a town hall, for starters, at Starbucks, only because it fits like 15 people. I mean, a lot of them are very, very small. Here's the thing. I want to ask you this before you give your perspective, Lisa. You know where there aren't Starbucks in this country?
Selma, Alabama.
Selma, Alabama, and Ferguson, Missouri.
Really?
So if I'm Starbucks and I want to start a national conversation about race, I might want to put, because there's 70 within a mile radius of where we are in New York right now.
Right,
I might want to put
Every
two in
other
there
block.
first, because that was the easiest thing to find out for journalists. Like,
exactly.
Put your money where your mouth is. Go ahead.
You know, and it may be a very good idea, and I'm sure he's a good man, but I saw it as a little bit opportunistic. Using the topic of race relations, which is huge right now, and trying to tie it to their brand. And there are cases where that works very effectively, for instance, with something like Dove and their campaign Real Beauty, where they used real women, not stick figure women, and in their advertisements on television.
Opportunistic too.
No, because it ties in with their brand of
just
showing
like
what
their
beauty.
opportunism.
No, but what does race relations have to do with lattes and coffee?
It's a positive effort.
It doesn't really.
It's a positive effort in a place where
positive
no one
effort.
speaks, though. It's not like there's ever dialogue in the first place.
I speak with it. I know the people, the baristas. I go in every day, and I know the same ones, and we talk about things, but we don't go over to the side and have a talk about race
You really
relations.
don't think, Lisa, honestly, that Dunkin' Donuts is better? Because it really is. I mean, it's so much more sweeter.
And I talk to my Starbucks
This
people
dovetails with the next thing we're going to talk about in the next segment. People lighten up, have a little fun. This is not the end of the
But it's
world.
Well, you're right.
It's
The
not-
reaction
may
has
not
been
be,
very
you know,
vitriolic.
But
No.
Rick, this isn't necessarily a fun conversation
Right,
for people.
it's not.
It can be,
No, I
it
get
can be
it.
really uncomfortable
But
for some
very
people.
uncomfortable.
But I
It's-
could have a
it's
fun
not that
conversation right
intense.
now.
Yeah?
So let's ask
Oh,
the
we're gonna
questions
take the
they have
test.
on the back, shall we? Your race relations reality check. Where do you stand? Okay, so Rick, question number 6. In my Facebook stream, do you have Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, in my Facebook stream, blank percent are of a different race.
How could I possibly know that? Because I just read their names when they write to me. I have no idea. And even if I was noticing that, I would not count how many of my
no.
friends are black and how many are white and how many are something
Heather,
else.
could you imagine actually going through? I have something like 874 Facebook friends. I know
That's
maybe
all.
14 of them.
That's all.
But imagine going through every single
and
one,
looking
and
to see,
I got
right.
16.9%. Are you Latino or are you?
That
Right.
seems
Well,
racist.
It's
That
crazy.
seems
It does.
racist.
It does.
The
Okay.
question is racist. I
Yeah.
agree.
Next question, Heather, you get this one. In the past year, comma, someone of a different race has been to my home blank times.
Oh my goodness.
Been to
Did
my
you
home
count?
blank
I couldn't
times.
tell you. More than 15, less than 50.
Wow, that's quite a range. Okay. Lisa, you get the next
How
one.
many times have white people come to this?
Lisa, do you have children?
Probably the same.
Yes.
Okay, you get the next question. My children have blank friends of a different race. My children have blank friends of a different race.
Yes. Is it a yes or no, or is it
No,
no?
no, it's a number.
I don't even know how many. I don't know how many because there's a number of them that they have through school. Through
You know
work.
what the trick is here?
I don't
Seriously,
know.
if you can answer it with a number, they're
Then-
telling you there's
Right,
something
Yes.
wrong.
Right.
Okay,
That's
go.
the
Second
setup.
question you could ask me.
My parents had blank friends of a different race.
Now, when we define race, do we include the Germans? Like, is that a different race?
That's not a race.
Oh, you mean?
like,
oh, really?
yeah.
I thought it was like an
that's
Aryan thing.
it's not a race.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I will say my mother's passed away, as I've mentioned on the show, so that's kind of a leading question, right? Maybe be a little sensitive and say parent or parents. So I don't like that test one bit. I'm not answering the question on their behalf.
Big trouble.
Anyway,
here.
we got to go. And by the way, check out these coffee cups, courtesy of Tracy Diamond Designs. Anyway, coming up next, does America suffer from a fund deficit? A former First Lady believes we do. Find out next. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Does America have a fund deficit? Certainly not here. Here is former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton speaking at the American Camp Association, or the ACA conference in Atlantic City.
As I have gotten older, I have decided we really need camps for adults. And we need the kind of camps that you all run. I mean, really, where, none of the serious stuff, none of the, life challenge stuff, more fun. I think we have a huge fun deficit in America.
Yep. You know what they call that place? It's called the Villages. Village. That's a fun camp.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, bring protection, but yes. Okay, Hillary, please continue.
We've become, in so many ways, a country that has slowly but surely figured out how to get along with more people from more backgrounds. But there are still differences that we need to get over. I said the other day at an event that we're much less racist, sexist, homophobic, all of those things. But we sure don't want to spend time with anybody who we disagree with politically.
That is completely not true. We somewhat like Rick. Back to Mrs. Clinton.
So, maybe mix it up a little bit. You can have the red cabin, the blue cabin, have to come together and actually listen to each other. Wouldn't that be a novel idea? And sort of create this, much more open dialogue opportunity, which I would like to see more of in our country.
That is easily one of the stranger speeches that I've ever heard.
It was great speech.
Did you really? We'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, much more open dialogue opportunity, sort of ironic considering Mrs. Clinton's email issues. Anyway, Hillary seems to be loosening up a little in this speech, as I said, just a touch odd. I know Rick loved it, but you go ahead
But
first.
here's the thing, Joe. It's easy to have fun when you're a multimillionaire. When you're worried about putting food on the table and getting your kids to school, and the number one worry for the Americans is the economy, as we were talking about during the break, to have someone be so patronizing to say, oh, just have more fun, who is going to be running for the president, who hasn't come forward with a plan for any of the issues that Americans are interested in, to now just be saying that it's important to have more fun, I think is going to turn a lot of people off.
That's such a gross political answer. I once had trouble doing all of those things. I didn't always have money, and you know what? We still had a lot of fun in my family. So that's just so political shame.
I'm not
but
saying-
that aside, how can that be a bad thing she just said? My entire career is testimony to my desire to see people talk to each other. I work at a conservative network. I write for a conservative newspaper. I'm all about hanging out with conservatives, and I like it because I like the conversations I get to have with people who don't agree with me. That's what she was sitting there asking us to do. What's to not like about that?
Rick, you're not running for president.
So what?
It's a totally different issue.
So
you
what?
can, you can
Lisa,
go.
And you know
jump
what? I mean, nothing says fun more than Hillary. I mean, she just screams
You've
fun.
never partied
she
with
just
her.
screams fun. And her husband knows how to have fun, but
partied
Hillary,
with him.
and I think that she was trying to. This was like what Heather said. This was Hillary trying to be more approachable, more
Is that bad?
relatable. But not if it's not real,
maybe it
and
is
people
real.
can see through that. And the thing is this is her last paid speech, I think, before she probably announces.
Right.
So shouldn't she be talking about much more, maybe more serious issues, policy issues, and things that someone planning on
ask a
running for
question?
president would be talking about?
But maybe in Atlantic,
Besides fun?
maybe in Atlantic City, you don't want to be talking policy.
Yeah,
at that
can I
point,
ask a
you know?
question of my friends here?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
my compatriots on the panel. Be honest. If that was Carly Fiorina who made that same speech, would you be as troubled by it?
I think
She
I would
wouldn't
still
do it.
She probably
She would
wouldn't.
never
And
do
I
it.
would still
Why?
Never
question.
do it because it's not what you want to see from your
But
president.
let's say
Why
she
about
did.
She wouldn't. If she did,
So
I would be
presidents
surprised
can't be
and I would
people
be
too?
disappointed.
Presidents
Of
can't be
course
people
they can,
too.
but not when
And
you're
you know who
giving-
she was speaking to? Summer camp people.
Right, the
Right,
American
summer camp
Camping
people,
Association.
and she was invited there by the Nassau County Democratic.
But
who owns,
she's talking to
chairman who owns
camping
a camp,
people. What's
camps.
wrong with telling them what they want to hear, which is we need more fun?
We need more
If you
camps,
want a
but
president
there
And
are
by the
adult
way,
camps.
she's right.
If you want a president who tells you what you want to hear, that's an option for
come
you. That's not the way I want to go.
Here's where I think
Come
she may
on.
have an issue, and I looked at this as objectively as I can. I swear to God, it comes across as phony.
Exactly.
I
exactly.
don't-
That's
we
'cause
don't
you
believe
have
it.
a-
No, because it just
No.
doesn't break.
If Romney did the same thing, I'd say, no, Mitt, don't
Okay,
do
I
that.
hear
When
that.
he said
I
that
hear
he
that.
watched Jersey Shore and Snooki was his favorite character,
We knew
he said
that.
that to Michael and the blonde.
Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly.
You didn't
I'm
buy
like,
it.
no, I don't
But
buy
here's,
it.
here's
We're
what's,
not buying that, right? I
here's
don't
what's
buy this.
interesting about it. I understand that's your perception. I get it. I do. I actually know that Hillary is. You're not going to believe me. She is a fun person.
And she has a
but
hard
it
time
doesn't come
portraying
through
that. It
very
doesn't.
well.
And
It
this doesn't come from
Okay.
probably for a lot
Rick,
of people.
one word answer. Best movie about summer camp ever.
Meatballs.
Correct. Not Meatballs 2, however.
No, Meatballs.
Right,
one.
but the one with Bill Murray,
Murray.
that was really just tremendous. Anyway, coming up next, it's potluck time. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's potluck time, Friday edition. This is the part of the show where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. LJ, what do you got?
Well, New York City has adopted a new progressive form of discipline, if you want to call it discipline, and it's been going on around the country in cities like Chicago and Philly and LA. And proponents of this, it's called restorative justice, say that traditional discipline is not fair because a greater proportion of black students are suspended from schools than white students. And what this is basically a child can attack a student or a teacher, bully, curse a teacher out, steal, use drugs, and they will not be suspended from the school. Instead, there'll be a talking circle. We'll find out why they're acting the way that they do, and there'll be peer juries. And Education Secretary Arne Duncan said this is a good thing because with this kind of program, the students, the young people, will become in control of the environment. Well, young people shouldn't be in control of the schools, just as your own children shouldn't be in control of the household. I taught in New York City schools. I've been in a number of schools around the city. This will never work. It isn't working around the country, and it's just, if we want to know why education isn't working, this is one of the reasons from the bottom up that
Who's doing it around the country?
LA is doing it, Rahm Emanuel is doing it, and it's been abysmal, the results. There has been an increase in incidents and in going on around
Heather,
the
is this a matter of inmates running the asylum?
Well, and isn't it a concern for the other kids who may be afraid of the
Absolutely.
child who's attacking them? I mean, this is where you see the other students being impacted and not able to get the education that they need and want. So it's unfortunate and it's a little bit scary.
It's
Wow.
scary, and the thing is that when you see that it's not working to implement it here, why do that when you see the statistics and the results of the other cities?
It just seems like we have so many more problems with our education system right now. Like, I don't know, test scores, and we're like 58th
But
in the
you
world
can't
or
even get
something.
to tests,
and we
Joe.
concentrate on all this other stuff.
But you can't even get to the tests, and that you cannot have any learning if there's no discipline in a school. If there's no structure, discipline, and consistency, that goes out the window.
Right. I grew up in Wayne, New Jersey, which borders on Patterson, New Jersey, right? And that's where Joe Clark was principal.
Oh,
and when
yes,
he
yes,
stepped
yes.
in, with a
that's the
baseball
difference.
bat and a bullhorn.
He probably
he
wouldn't have
cleaned
gone
up
with
his
this
side.
But he did. But he,
Morgan Freeman did anyway.
Right.
He would
but
not
he
have
had
gone
results.
with this.
You don't think so?
No, I don't
He
think
did.
this would
He
be
did.
his thing.
Wow.
And I've been in schools in the South Bronx where it depends on the leadership that you have there.
Don't you teach people
where-
what you expect of them? You know, people rise up to your expectations. So if you expect them to sort of just get away with it, type
You know,
of
but the
behavior,
idea
they're gonna do it.
of asking students, you know, giving them, and actually part of the process is they have a talking stick, and they goes around the circle to.
See, I wouldn't know if it would work or not. I'm not an educator, but I do agree that if they're getting empirical data out of 2 other cities who are doing it and it's not working, I'm not quite sure why you would repeat it.
Heather, you're up next.
Mine has to do with a group of 4th graders in New Hampshire who thought that the hawk should be the state's official raptor. So they sponsored a bill, took it to committee, brought it to the floor, and when it got to the floor, one of the Republican state representatives turned it into an argument about abortion and said that the hawk should actually be the official mascot of Planned Parenthood, and got into the specifics of ripping people apart and all kinds of stuff, which impacted the children, of course. The bill was
Were the kids
ultimately
there?
yes, they were there watching the process.
So wrong.
So they saw that, and then in addition to that, another member of the lovely Congress then got up and said that this was ridiculous, and what are we going to have next, a state hot dog? And the kids were actually more upset about that because they understood that. They didn't really understand what the talk about the abortion was. But you know, we talked yesterday about compulsory voting and how to get people more involved and how to get people more incentivized. And now you've got these young 4th graders who are to the age where soon they will be voting and soon they will be involved. And to have them come and be belittled and to turn it into a political thing is just absolutely not only ridiculous, but contrary to what this country should stand for. And hopefully some of these 4th graders will learn from it instead of walking away from it and become
Let me guess.
better.
Any chance that state legislator was a Republican?
Yeah, she mentioned that.
I
Done.
did say it.
Oh, you
I did
said
say
it?
It's
yes.
just so inappropriate that specific topic to use that agenda, you know, for his agenda with the children.
But this is the quality of what we're getting today in state legislators. I'm going to turn into that if you don't mind terribly.
No, that's fine.
I think we'd all agree, what an idiot doing that in front of kids.
Right.
But this is what you're seeing around the country, and I have to say it. It's Republican legislators who are doing these obscene, insane things
You
that
don't
just
think
waste
Democrat
taxpayer.
legislators would do
Go
any
find
kind
them.
of-
Well, I'm
Go
not
find
sure
them
if
who
the
do
person,
these silly
the
things.
people who
I'm
actually
sure
made,
somewhere.
So that, yeah.
the people who actually made the children most upset were the ones who belittled the whole idea that
Yeah,
they had worked.
I
But those
understand.
may have been Democrats, and in
Right,
fact,
we-
I think
we
that
don't
they
know.
were. Either way, it's not so much about the party as about the view towards their service. They are serving those children. Those are
Right.
their
Those are their
that's their job.
constituents. Right.
So it's ridiculous.
Well, we'll have to end it there, but parents watching, enjoy your weekend because our educational system isn't screwed or anything after those two
You
stories.
can't blame the education.
Friday
These are parents
potluck.
who sent those people there.
Friday potluck's supposed to be heavy. Anyway, we'll have more potluck for you in a moment, including Rick's and my own. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm your host, Joe Concha, and we are in the middle of our potluck where we're sharing our favorite stories of the day, and I'm up first. Good stuff. And it's a Friday, so we're going to have some fun instead of talking about our horrible education system. Anyway, so today, believe it or not, is the first day of spring, and boy, wouldn't you know it, I mean, it's just beautiful here in New York City. But, you know, it's cold, admittedly, and actually, I couldn't even see on the way over here. I swear to God, I had to have my head down, and it was just a miserable day, and still is here in New York. And I thought back to about 3 weeks ago or so where I basically lambasted, I eviscerated you, the American public, for complaining too much about being cold. Do we have that tape? The point is that we're very pampered, and I know it's a little bit colder than usual. March is coming very soon. I think in about 48 hours.
Yeah.
Right? And then we got March Madness, and before you know it, St. Patrick's Day, and you're going to get that 70-degree day, and it'll all be forgotten. Please stop complaining about the weather in February. It happens to get cold at this time of year, particularly when you're New York and up. So pipe down.
Was that a movie within a movie?
Yeah, I was very, very angry there at the time, and you know what? And I said, you know, you just got to toughen up. I grew up in Jersey basically my whole life, and it was cold, and you're supposed to get used to it. Well, now guess what? I'm complaining. It's horrible out there.
it was.
I can't take it
It's a
anymore.
little snow.
I set the
little
70-degree
snow.
day
It's a
after
little
St.
snow.
Patrick's
You
Day.
know what happened? You went away. So you got out of it, and now you can't deal with coming back.
I guess.
It's just
too
weather.
But the point, no,
But
it's
it affects people, though. It really does.
Especially the people in
Not
Massachusetts.
except for you, Rick.
And I came from L.A. and it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother, yeah, because the limo's waiting outside with the heated seats. You should see what's under this table right now.
Like
That's
everybody.
You got one of those footy jacuzzi things going on. Let me show you,
No, I have
everybody.
my fan like well, he's not the governor of Florida. He tried to be.
Chris?
Chris, yeah, he has a little fan he takes with him.
Little
everywhere.
fan. He's more orange than Boehner. Let me show you people walking in the snow here today in New York City. I mean, look at that. It was. This is March 20th. I know it snowed this late before, but this can't be happening.
It's the last one.
So this is what happened. I'm walking. You can see me there. Okay. I'm walking across the street. I got the white umbrella. All right. Let me finish.
How embarrassing.
Yes. And then I couldn't take it anymore because you literally couldn't see. So I stepped into a cab instead. And then suddenly this guy, I swear, he's right behind me, and he actually starts snowboarding behind the cab.
No way.
And I took video of it
Really?
with my little cell phone. Yeah. Let's
Do
see.
you have it?
Do
Do you
we
have
have the footage, guys? Snowplow banks and everything. Goes by the Time Warner truck there. And I couldn't believe it. I'm in this cab, and he suddenly starts doing
There's
this.
someone without a fun deficit.
Really?
That's right.
And I couldn't believe also that I was in Manhattan.
That looks great.
And there literally was no one else in the street to prevent this from happening, because on a normal day he would have been, just drilled from behind. So,
Credit to Casey Neistat. That's who that was.
so the point is that I apologize to you, America, because I said you shouldn't whine about the snow and the cold. Well,
Now we
whining.
can.
It's horrible.
Whine away. Whine
Rick,
away.
take it away.
You're whining. How can I? The Obama administration did something right today. How do I know they did something right? Because this morning, the new federal regulations on fracking were released. Now, so you understand, the federal regulations on fracking only apply to a very small amount of fracking. That fracking which is going on in our nationally owned lands, parks, whatever. But what's important about them is that states will more than likely adopt those same regulations and apply it to people in their state, and understand that most fracking takes place on private lands. So it will eventually get to them. Now, why do I say they did something right? Now, I actually am supportive of fracking as long as it's done safely. The first call I got was from somebody who represents the fracking industry, and they were complaining. Regulations are too hard. This is too much government involvement. The Fed should stay out of it. I went, oh, that's interesting. But then a couple hours later, I got a call from one of the large environmental organizations, and they were complaining. They didn't go far enough. They're going to start drilling in new federal lands, and it's going to be a big problem. Both sides were unhappy, and that means the administration got it right.
Wow. I like the argument, but I like the fact you spoke right to the people at home.
What I do.
And we're
I'm here to educate.
That was like the fireside chats from way back when, except on television.
If Obama would have listened to me, we'd have more fireside chats, and Heather would like him.
I don't know
you're a big
about
fracker.
that. I mean, you're talking about fireside chats at Starbucks, maybe. I don't know. The fracking thing, I mean, I do see your point. We always say when we settle cases, if everybody's unhappy with the settlement, and it's a good settlement. I just worry, energy is our #1 job creator. We need more jobs. We, when we start putting regulations on fracking, you sort of decrease.
Well, let's talk just briefly what they did. Substantially, they basically said that you need to disclose the chemicals you're using. What annoyed the environmentalist is it's after it's already started.
Instead of before.
And what was the other thing?
The other thing is we have to go to commercial
gotta
in
go.
7 seconds. Yes.
We'll remember it and come back.
That's all the
and
time we have for Potluck, clearly. And it's time for Yay or Nay. Next, this is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, what would you do if a 2-ounce bag of weed fell out of your pocket while you were in a courtroom? Well, that's what just happened to Vincent Fazzoni, a lawyer who practices in Connecticut. Yep, during a hearing, Fazzoni stood up with his client and the bag fell out on the floor right in front of the judge. He is now charged with possession, but he's not Talking about the incident, his paralegal, however, says that he does not smoke pot. And the reason he had it in the first place was because, get ready, another client who found the bag in her son's room was upset about it. And here's exactly what the paralegal said, quote, he took the pot and the plan was when her son got out of school, that attorney, Fazzoni, was going to go talk to him and say, look, what your mom found in your room, this is very illegal, very bad. Do you believe the lawyer's story, Heather? Yay or nay?
No way. I actually have had a similar experience where
You dropped it out of
not
your
mine, not mine, but the opposing attorney early in my career, I didn't even know what it was. So apparently lawyers like to smoke
Didn't know
pot.
what it was.
I really didn't.
Well-
I don't believe a minute of it.
Right,
Not a
right.
minute of
Rick,
it.
A lawyer is an officer of the court. They wouldn't lie.
Of course not.
This is
Never.
a definitely yay, I
No,
believe
he
him.
seemed to do something so good for the client, but no,
right.
no, not at all.
Right. Yeah, I am absolutely a nay as well. Clearly, he would have put that in the refrigerator for a night just to keep it fresh, just in case the
Right.
kid wanted
That's
it back,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Or so I've heard. So, many buildings on college campuses across the country are named after generous benefactors and alumni, but there aren't too many buildings named after murderers. The Black Student Union at UC Berkeley, which I believe, no, it was UC Irvine, almost pulled an upset today, wants to rename a building after convicted cop killer Asanta Shakur, no relation to Tupac, I believe. Shakur was a former Black Panther and the first woman on the FBI's list of most wanted terrorists. She was convicted of killing execution style with her own gun, mind you, back in 1973, and she escaped from prison in the 1970s and has been hiding in Cuba ever since. In 2013, the FBI designated her as a terrorist and is offering a $2 million reward for information that would lead to her capture. So why would students want to name a building after a terrorist? Well, apparently, the Black Student Union at UC Berkeley thinks she is, quote, an icon of resistance within oppressed communities. One student even said, quote, we want the renaming of it to be someone who we feel represents us as Black students. Let's go with our all-white panel on this one. Lisa, is it a good idea, yay or nay?
I mean, I'm going to have to say, I don't care if the race of the person. If they're a murderer, no, I would say nay. Unless she's a generous benefactor, which I highly doubt.
If you're
So
from
I'm
Cuba,
gonna
I guess
have to say
that would
nay.
be a very hard thing to do through PayPal, I guess. But.
There's a lot of controversy about this lady. There's a lot of political controversy about her. I think that sometimes college students get involved in all that and maybe don't know all the sides, but I think at the end of the day, given her current situation, it's a definite nay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, setting aside the politics, she killed a cop.
Right.
I think that they should name the building after her, invite her to the dedication, and then arrest her.
Yes,
You know,
Wow.
I like
gets
that.
Oh,
Listen to you.
entrapment.
I like
Okay.
that.
And you've created a rhyme for this segment. At the end of the day, it is a nay. I won't expand why, obvious reasons. As you all know, it's March Madness time, and as expected, everyone is obsessed with college basketball right now. Yes, so much so that TV viewership is up, upgrades to HD television are up, gambling obviously is up if it was legal, productivity at work, yes, is down, costing employers billions, and even certain colleges are noticing a rise in applications during this time of year. And while none of those anomalies are too strange, this next one certainly is. Apparently, doctors reporting up to a 50% rise during the NCAA tournament, get this, vasectomies. Yes.
Vasectomies?
Yes.
That's
Doctors
what I'm
say the
gonna
number of vasectomies rises during this time as it gives men an excuse to stay home and watch the tournament. Why didn't I think of that? Are these men onto something or are they crazy, Rick Unger? Yes, it's true.
I thought you were going to say more babies happen or something. No, they're out of their minds. There are a lot of ways to fake having to stay home if that's what you want to do. Rather than getting
Listen,
snipped.
there's urology groups that are using it to advertise, saying this is the time to do it, then you get to sit home 3 days, no excuses.
That's
Hey,
called
it's a
March
good marketing.
It's March Madness.
Yeah,
Lisa,
exactly.
right?
It's a good-
50%.
I think it's
I'm
a great
gonna say
marketing.
nay. There's got to be a better way to be able to watch March Madness besides having
Yes,
to get a
it
starts with
vasectomy.
What do you think I've been doing during the commercials?
Yeah, but
I've
this
had
is
it on my
just-
phone.
You get to just sit on your butt.
And who is leading the Newsmax poll? Do you happen to know?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Rick Unger.
I believe he is, yes.
Good job. I
With
can
his
get the scores up
scientific
right
picks.
here. Maryland up 47-43. Yeah, so I am absolutely a nay on this as well, only because there's so many, as Rick said, there's so many better excuses out there. You could go with the SARS, the avian flu,
Yeah.
the Ebola if
There's
you happen to be in
stomach
Africa
flu
lately.
going around.
A stomach flu as big as
Nobody's
well.
coming
fake
with
that?
you to
How do
see
you
if it's
fake
true.
that?
Oh,
How
it's
do you fake a
easy.
really?
Nobody's coming with you to check, you know.
Or just call in sick.
Or just-
Yeah.
right.
You know,
For 3 days,
nothing
though?
illegal about that.
Getting a
Anyway,
vasectomy?
panel, we got to go. It's happy hour. It's Friday night. You all look lovely, and thanks for joining us. Definitely a fun show. And more Daily Wrap Monday night, 6 p.m. I'm Joe Concha saying good night.